Welcome to the Median Athlete Show. This is Kasey. This is episode 5, and I'm excited to have Shannon Miller on the show this morning.
Hi.
18 degrees outside right now.
Generously 18 degrees.
Yeah. So welcome, Shannon. If you don't mind, just give it a quick intro. Tell us what you're all about.
My name is Shannon Miller. I am an East Nashvilleian. I'm a ghostwriter. I am an enthusiastic, sort of slow, really dedicated runner. I'm a mama of 3 kiddos who are 9, 9, and 12.
So twins then, I guess?
Twins.
9, 9, and 12?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. Double trouble.
Very cool. Double trouble. That's good to hear. I have 3 kids myself, so 12, 9, and 2.
Ooh.
So
back in the baby zone.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about your athletic background.
There's not a ton to tell.
Sure.
I was not a big athlete growing up. In elementary school, I faked asthma, got a prescription for an inhaler and everything, and managed to worm my way out of track and field. The only sport I was good at, and I don't think they even have this anymore, it was called the standing long jump. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Yes. So it was a hop, and that was, after that, I was done for the day after my one hop. So, yeah, I mean, definitely not a ton of competitive background, minus some years as like a horse girl in horse sports, which are a little bit different.
So Lori, John Stock's wife, actually introduced us and connected us together. So she said you have an interesting running story, talking about that. So you said you're a runner. So
Yes.
what got you into running?
Well, I think I have wanted to run most of my life. I've always had a really strong flight instinct and a lot of anxiety. I've spent a ton of time fighting against that and trying to change that in myself. And then I remember it was after I had the twins and I was in that post-baby fog of exhaustion, postpartum hormones and general chaos. I felt so tired. It was a big existential, spiritual tiredness. I felt such a strong compulsion to just run. And I went out and did it one day in like the worst gear possible, like so ill-equipped. I ran to the butcher to get steak. And so I ran home with a backpack full of steak. That's kind of how I started getting to a breaking point with anxiety. After many years of addiction, eating disorders, things like that, I finally said, this nervous energy is a part of who I am. And how can I welcome it? How can I use it in my life? How can I make it into a gift? Because it really has been to me.
Nervous energy. So tell me more about that.
I am a very hypervigilant person. So when I wake up in the morning, I wake up all the way awake. I'm on a level.
Ready to go.
Ready to go. I can be really fearful. And that's kept me from doing a lot of things in my life. It's kept me from running, from competing, from trying sports, so many different things. So I think I really needed to find a way to wrap my arms around that. And running gave me the space to do that, where I could say, okay, well, what is this feeling? How can I hold this feeling? Running's the space that showed me how to care for that feeling.
And so what does running look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
I came in pretty hot after my backpack full of steak. I ran
Running from a proverbial bear chasing you with a backpack full of meat. Yeah.
I got a little education. I read a little bit. I started reading Runner's World and set myself up with a pretty good routine. I probably started running about 20 miles a week, worked my way up to about 40, started doing some pretty long runs on the weekends, eventually a couple marathons and things like that. Now I'm learning to dial it back. That's tough. I'm sure you can relate. It's tough once your body gets used to a certain routine to switch it up a bit. I'm 40, so my body doesn't do quite as well, especially on these winter mornings with all that impact. I'm trying to dial it down a little bit to, closer to 20 miles. Lots of runs that look a little bit more like 5 or 6 or 7 miles rather than 15.
Okay. I'm definitely in that phase of noticing the, fighting the age, fighting the aches and pains more, resisting that a lot, trying to stay in the game. But then also, I don't know, I like to sit around 4 to 5 miles on a normal run, but it's scary how fast I lose the ability to do my longer runs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, like, I guess in April was my marathon, and right now it's like I don't even want to do 10 miles. I got to build that back.
And with little ones, those long runs, it's hard to find the time.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means waking up early or squeezing in between work or something like that. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you mentioned marathons. So
Yes.
did you run any actual races, or are you just uh, using marathon as a distance metric?
Just a distance metric. I'm like
Yeah.
pretty agoraphobic.
Okay. Yeah.
I run a lot at Shelby Park in East Nashville. We love you, Shelby Park. There are lots of races there. From time to time, I will accidentally drop into a race, and it's a terrifying experience for me. I don't do great in crowds, especially post COVID. Like the word Costco shiver up my spine, like I just don't do well in those environments. Running has been really pretty either solitary or, with normally one partner. Um, so I've stayed away from the big races. My friend Jeremy Lister, who's a ultra runner, musician, awesome human being, you know, had a virtual marathon that he sort of threw
Nice.
during the pandemic, and that was a great invitation into like a long distance. It's just sort of having that one person for accountability, and being able to choose my own route. I went by all my friends' houses, which was fantastic.
So some people have extrinsic goals or motivation
Mm,
to run, like they've got a race. Sometimes I fall into that trap. Like I'm motivated by finishing said race I
mhm,
signed up
mhm.
for, like a marathon, which I've only done one, but that was the obsession. That
Yeah.
was why I ran. Um, but then you could do 26 miles on a random Sunday anywhere if you wanted. It sounds like you have more intrinsic motivation to run versus the race, like the final goal in mind. What motivates you to get out there and do these long distances?
These distances, especially after having a history with addiction and anxiety and not a lot of trust in my body, really have helped me regain that trust. When I need a reminder, nothing's going to remind me more than 18 miles that I am stronger than I think I am, and more resilient. I can pace myself and take care of myself, which running teaches you to do. If you're going to run a long distance, you have to make sure you're going to be fueled properly, that you're not going to bonk, that you know where the restrooms are. So it is a great way to care for myself.
Knowing where the restrooms are is important because you may be at a long run and you're running to figure out where to
Oh
go.
yeah.
I've done that before.
Yeah.
There's some porta potty nightmares.
Same. Same. I had a very reliable porta potty. We called him Old Blue, and he was my 6 mile pit stop. And then one day they moved him. He was just gone. That's a heartbreaker. And it's also very uncomfortable because you have to find a place to go.
Yeah. You need a plan B.
Yes, I did not have
Yeah.
one.
So just running to run, what gets you out there?
Well, I think it's a lot of me time. And as a parent, it's so hard to find time, and sort of taking it through something like a run. I feel very free when I'm running. It feels kind of rebellious, like it feels like my big mom rebellion is saying, I'll see you in 2 hours. Like, I'm going.
Some time for yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And the cool thing is that my kids take a lot of pride in it now. I'll come home and they'll be like, "How far did you go? What did you see? Who did you run with?" And
That's awesome.
it's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool. I actually started going out doing little runs with my 12-year-old, which is fun.
How far did he make it?
He made it 3 very rocky miles. We got a lot of cramps.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But it was great, and it was fun to share that with him.
I imagine that'll get better.
He'll be
Like
faster than me in no time.
right.
He'll have a
I'm,
six
I'm
minute
waiting
mile.
for I'm waiting for my 12-year-old to want to run with me more. We'll see how that goes.
Well, we can take them
Um,
together. We'll see how they do.
yeah. You've mentioned OCD, eating
Mhm,
disorder,
mhm.
anxiety. Where do you want to talk about that? What did OCD look like as far as how you behaved?
Mm.
Like,
Well, for me, I will say my OCD today, thankfully, very functional, almost a little friend. It was not always that way. When I was much younger, it manifested as really, really extreme bulimia for me. So my eating disorder and OCD were really, really tied together. There were points where I was binging and purging probably 30 or 40 times a day. It really
Oh,
became my entire life. I was working in music at the time, and it was really stressful, especially as kind of a quiet person who doesn't love to perform. It took an extreme amount of emotional energy for me to do that in order to feel a sense of control. The OCD and the bulimia really joined hands, and that was very dangerous. And I'm very lucky to be alive today. Had some close calls for sure, and have a lot of friends who aren't here to tell their stories. So
man.
yeah, now that I have language and tools, which back then our generation just didn't have. If you don't have the language, how are you supposed to find the tools? But now I respect the fact that I need to feel safe. I understand that I need to find ways to give myself reassurance. I know that I'm going to be sure that the gas is turned off at night and the cars are locked, and that I'm going to have intrusive thoughts occasionally. And I think that's why running has been so great. I feel very strong when I'm running, and I don't feel that in a lot of other spaces in my life.
Nice. Yeah, sounds like you've been through a lot, obviously.
Mhm.
So you mentioned performing as well.
Yeah.
What were you doing prior?
I came to Nashville as a musician, got a little publishing deal. I
Nice.
was an artist in Canada, I'm Canadian, and came down here. I just found it really hard to perform. It was like heavy masking for me, almost adopting an entirely new personality to do that. Um,
Yeah.
and drinking heavily, having a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol. Eventually, it got to a point where I had to decide, you know, can I keep myself safe in this world? And for me, the answer at that time was no. So I really did need to step away. Thankfully, writing music was my first writing job, and it did ultimately lead me to my provision. So, now I
Awesome.
work in books. I have a lot more space to work with now, and I really enjoy it.
That sounds like a great time to start talking about your
Yeah.
profession.
Well, I am a novelist and I'm a ghostwriter. And a ghostwriter is somebody who works with an author to produce their work, their memoir, their normally nonfiction book, though I do fiction occasionally with other people. It's a really cool partnership. Those are long term relationships. It takes a while to write a book, takes a lot of bravery on the author's part, a lot of intimacy. And for me, I'm really honing my listening skills every single day. I've written 16 books now.
That's amazing.
Thank you. You know what? It's the best. It's the best work. It's a great way for me to show up for people. And one of the few ways I feel like I'm really equipped to do that. I can't help you fix anything, but I can help you write your book. So yeah, it's been wonderful.
And as far as listening skills go, what have you picked up on? Anything in particular?
That's a great question. I think for me, as a writer, I get really excited when I find the big plot point or the big pain point. And I'm normally wrong the first time. So if someone's telling me their story, I really need to make sure that I don't get too excited right from the get go. If I'm not super awake about it and wanting to start writing the book before I know the story.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
it's
could
simple.
possibly go down the wrong trail.
I think it's being much slower to judgment. And that's a great skill for anyone to have, but one I have to work on.
In the ghostwriting, how often are you meeting with the clients? How does that look?
It's different every single time, which is what makes it awesome. I have some clients who really want to be involved in drafting their book, so it's much more of a partnership. And then there are others who absolutely hate writing and they don't want to see it until they have to look at it. Depending on where the author's based too, we might meet on Zoom. We might meet in person if they're local, or I might fly out to wherever they are. A lot of times, and this is really cool, people will send me their voice memos from their walk or run. It's cool to see what a creative space running or walking is for others.
Because you use running as a creative space as well, right?
Yeah, it is the single most effective cure for writer's block that I've found. It's helped me work out so many problems. There's something about getting away from your screen, getting out of your
Mhm.
house, you know, just really getting in touch with those observational skills again, too. You know,
Yeah.
so many times I've been looking for an entry point to a paragraph or a chapter, and I'll see something on my run that's gorgeous. Um, or I'll see a person who brings up a question. It's been really good to me creatively.
Yeah. Um, I do feel like more for walks for me, but,
Mm.
when there's a big problem at work, like some problem I'm trying to solve.
Hmm.
Sometimes on runs, but it's more about on walks for me. That's like, okay, now I got to get back, figure out what I just thought of, and then do it,
Yeah.
and that solves the problem. That's great.
It is good medicine for sure.
Yep. You mentioned agoraphobia earlier. I went through that a lot with COVID as well. I was a microbiology major, so
Oh gosh, too much
a
information.
little too much. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which helped me in some ways and hindered me in others.
Hmm.
Especially seeing what was going on with uh, our elected officials and having that microbiology background. The Look Up movie that was on Netflix that came out was hit a little too close to home for
Yeah.
me. But I definitely saw the agoraphobia pick up a lot too. You mentioned Costco. I've somehow gotten no exposure therapy or something. I don't
Yeah.
know what it is. A trigger
Costco
that
will
I
do
can.
that.
Yeah, I'm now like addicted to going to Costco for some reason. So I've gotten better, but for the while there, I was just like, I don't want to be here,
Yeah.
and I get that. It was like that for a long time. There are still some times where I'm just like, especially right now, my toddler has been sick since I don't know August. It's just constantly sick. Family events is always someone who's got COVID. Or it's still out there. Um,
Getting on an airplane.
yep.
Woo! I just get in that Southwest line and I'm like, okay.
And Southwest is the worst for just. I know that they're going away with their seating
Yes.
system, but I hated it every time. Like every time I got to get on Southwest flight, if it was for work, I would get the upgraded boarding just to like board early and not to deal with because I would be if I forget to check in 24 hours ahead of time,
Yeah.
then I would just get hosed. I'd be in C group, and C stands for center, and then you're gonna be in the middle seat, and just never fun. Flying experience is usually
Yeah. Yeah. It feels a little bit like a competitive sport, that line at times.
the person in the center, by the way, to everyone who's listening, is supposed to get the armrests on either side. That's the compromise for being in
Yes.
the center.
Give him that. Or her.
All right, so let's talk about gear a little bit.
Ooh.
What do you wear? What do you take on your runs?
I have lots of favorites. But as far as what I'm really evangelical about, especially for women with thighs, which I have two excellent thighs, I use the Nike running tights. Um,
Okay.
they are fantastic. The main reason I love these so much is they are the only leggings I can wear where I don't chafe at all. And I know that men have their own journey with chafing. But our typical lady seam is going to look like this triangle of sadness right here. But our friends at Nike have created a seam. They need to be paying me for this. That goes all the way down. So instead of a triangle, it's more of a long separate section. Because of that seam, I'm chafe free. I can go longer distances. They're really light, they're really comfortable. I don't have to use a bunch of body glide all over my crotch and my thighs. So that's great. I typically run in Hoka's. Hoka Cliftons are my go to. I love having a fast shoe that makes me feel like a barefoot runner, but for the long ones, I need a slower, clunkier grandma shoe. The Cliftons have been really good to me that way.
Are the Cliftons a stability shoe or are they a neutral? Do you know?
I think they're a neutral shoe, but I could be wrong. I know there are more cushion shoes. The Bondi is very cushioned. That's like you grow a good inch wearing those things.
And how are your ankles? Do you ever have issues with rolling your ankles on a high stack or anything like that?
Okay, this is very topical at the moment for me. I have never had an issue with my ankles. Typically, if something's gonna fall apart for me, it'll be my hips. Thank you, carrying twins, for that. My hips are still recovering. Um, or it'll be shin splints. But my ankles have been fine until yesterday. I wore a pair of shoes that I normally wouldn't wear. My kids are so sweet. You can customize Nikes for people, and they, when you're for Mother's Day, they customize these like super cool looking Nikes that are great to walk around with, but when running they just didn't have that ankle support, and like immediately I was like so
Oh, wow.
so I think it'll be okay, but I'm gonna rest it. I'm trying to rest it for a couple days.
Yeah, my ankles have gotten a lot stronger over the past year, so, like, doing a lot of work, but
Mm.
then if I wore certain shoes, if I hit a stick or a rock just in the wrong way,
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm trying to remember if it would go I think I would wanna roll in,
I'm gonna roll out.
but it's just that weak point of like, "Okay, we're gonna give," and so that's taken a lot of work.
Mm.
So I'm always curious about other runners, it's staying healthy and
Yeah.
not that's where my mental health can start to break down.
Mhm.
When I'm struggling with doing the thing that I love to do is just get out and move.
Mhm.
If I
Mhm.
can't do that, then I get a pain to be around. A little
I get real crotchety if I'm not out there doing my thing.
yeah.
Do you do anything as far as strength training to stay healthy?
Yeah, so I am dealing with a couple of things right now. The Mobo board has really helped me with my
Mm.
ankle
Okay.
and my overall stability. So it's like a circular wooden platform
Mhm.
with little fins. Have you seen this?
I've never
Okay.
tried one though.
Okay.
So tell me
Yeah.
everything.
So they have fins on. You know what?
Are we gonna get
I'll
a
be right back.
demo? Oh, there she is. My goodness. That thing is cool.
All right. So we're back in business. This is the Mobo board.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
So these come out and you can move them to like 2 or 4 or 1 and
Mm.
3. And then you put your foot obviously in the foot shaped place, and your big toe goes here, and your little toes hang.
Oh, okay.
So you rely more on push off with the big toe. So you stand on it with one foot, and you do various exercises, but yeah, you can rock back and forth. 1 and 3, I think, works a different set of muscles than 2 and 4.
Okay. I
Um,
didn't know this was like a 1 foot operation.
yeah, and
That's
so
a
then
very
you flip it,
impressive.
and then you flip it over and do the other side. It really helps with stability, foot strength.
Yeah.
Um, so 1 and 3 goes one way as far as the angle, and then 2 and 4 goes the other.
Mm.
One of those sets will work more your foot strength and into your ankle,
Mm.
and the other will work up your chain into your hip.
Okay. That would be
So
really good for me.
overall stability is better in general. We were on vacation in October, and I almost fell down a huge flight of stairs.
Oh no.
But I landed on one foot, and because of doing stuff like that, I was able to stay on the stairs and not fall.
Did someone
I
see your save?
yes,
Good.
yeah.
Good.
There were people around who helped me make sure I didn't fall, but I had luggage all over my shoulders hanging, and yeah, it was close. So that's one thing I use a lot. That
Mhm.
really helps with my feet,
Okay.
ankle strength, posterior tibialis tendon dysfunction. Have you heard about
I
this
haven't.
before? Okay. Uh, I've turned into somewhat of an evangelical for post tib. This is an important muscle and mainly a tendon that runs down the inside of your leg near your
Mm.
shin, kind of underneath, and it turns into the tendon that supports your arch.
Okay.
So that really helps you control pronation. If that tendon gets to the point where it gets too weak,
Mm.
it gets too stretched out. It's like a cable suspension in a bridge.
Okay.
and then your arch starts to collapse over time. There are different stages of it if you don't rehab the tendon well,
Mm-hmm.
and then ultimately leading to surgery if you're too far past the rehab point. So I went through that with trying to do more minimal shoes, too much too soon. I talk about this a lot, but I feel like there are two different ways of getting this
Mm-hmm.
is too much load through your feet. That was me trying to do zero drop shoes
That's me
and
too sometimes.
yeah. Sometimes I hear it's like doing super shoes
Okay.
can do the same thing. So some athletes
Interesting.
are getting post tip because of using super shoes and like there's just not enough support. Their feet are getting weak, kind of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to strengthen from the ground up has been important to me and really helped. And then hip stuff.
Yeah.
So I got a tight piriformis,
Okay.
and it's been like my marathon or marathon training. So I'm doing a lot of stuff at home.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get more heavy lifting. It's been on my list to do is get heavier at the gym, but I do a lot of body weight, strength training stuff at home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about you? What are you doing?
I'm working really hard on loving the gym. I'm so drawn to cardio now. I like it. I know myself when I'm running, but weights is like a whole new thing for me. I'm getting in really slowly. And this is really important for women, especially mothers. After childbearing, and we just blast open our cores. It is not the same situation anymore. If I don't have a strong core, everything else is going to fall apart. My hips are done, and then you just work your way down from there to the tips of my
Mhm.
toes. After I had the twins, I'm just going to be all the way real with you. I am not the only one. After I had the babies and I was running, there's a lot of problem with like peeing and all that stuff. And I did pelvic floor therapy, like PT, and it changed my life.
Oh yeah.
It changed my health all the way through and improved my time. I shaved some seconds off my mile once I really focused on strengthening that core again. To the mamas out there, go back in real slowly and take care of those muscles. They need real recovery after that.
Yes.
Yes,
It's a lot going on during delivery. You have to rebuild a lot of strength there.
definitely. And maintain it too.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in the age where it seems like the work that I'm doing isn't really building a lot of strength. It's
Mm,
just maintaining it, right?
yes.
I'm kind of in this accelerated muscle mass loss phase, supposedly, like doing single leg calf raises.
Mm,
I do them all the time, but it doesn't feel like I'm getting any better. I just do calf raises so I can keep doing calf raises.
yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed the same thing or not.
I think for me, my most effective form of resistance training has been my own body, some pretty standard push-ups and things like that, and squats with or without weights, lots of yoga. um,
Yep.
my husband is really into lifting now, which is super frustrating because because he's really good at it, and of course he started doing this sort of randomly one day, and the next week he was like an American gladiator. And I'm over
Right.
here like, I've been running for years and I look the exact same. But he's been very gracious and kind of showing me proper positioning and things like that. Because if you're not careful, it's really easy to injure yourself with the weights as well.
Yes. I was in a debate last night with my wife about squatting.
Okay.
I haven't gone to the gym and done a squat with a bar
Mm-hmm.
since
Mm-hmm.
high school. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen anecdotal stories about the fact that it's like diminishing returns when it comes to the risk of getting injured
Mm-hmm.
by doing the squat way versus the benefits. That can be debated a lot. She is very pro squat, and I am like I'd like to get into it, but I don't want to hurt my back kind
Mm-hmm.
of scenario. And so I guess that's where I am with
Do you ever get into yoga at all?
I do some sessions at home.
Okay.
We may need to sign up for a class or something. What about you?
I do love yoga when I actually get out to the class. But if you're not a squat fan, I do a lot of chair pose that I'll hold for a really long time. Do you know that pose?
I think I've seen it. Like you've got your hands on the chair and you're
Well,
going back.
yeah, it's like I'm in a demo now. And
Okay.
I won't do it well because I'm not a yoga instructor, and all my yoga instructor friends are going to be so sad that I'm attempting this right now. But you sit down as far as you can and put a lot of your weight back and push forward, and just hold that for like a really long time.
Okay.
And that's kept my back pretty healthy, but it also works a lot of those big thigh muscles.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing anything I can to discover my glutes.
Mm.
The squatting may come into play, but yeah, I'm looking for whatever I can. I've never had glutes, and now I'm paying for it. I'm trying to build them up.
I don't have glutes.
Okay.
I don't have them.
Gluten for it.
And it is frustrating because they feel very important.
Yeah. There's like single most important muscle for especially for running.
Yes.
I've been following the movement. He jokingly calls himself an influencer. His name is Lawrence Van Lincoln. I always mess it up. He talks about healthy hip extension, glute max, learning to move differently while
Mhm.
running. One of those is walking with a tire, dragging a tire behind you. I don't know if you've seen this before.
Yes, I think maybe I have seen it.
Okay.
It looks a
So
little bit like Highland Games, sort of, right?
yeah.
Okay.
So you drill a hole in a tire, you use tire, wrap a rope around like an eyelet and then around your waist. Then you walk a certain way to learn how to extend with your hips. I just got my tire the other night, so I'm venturing into that as well. Of like trying to reteach my discover my glutes, learn how to
Yes.
walk, and translate that to
Question
running a little
about
bit
the
more.
tire.
Yeah.
Do y'all have a lot of land? Are you just gonna be
I,
on the road with your tire?
I did it yesterday. I look like a crazy person in the cul-de-sac.
Commitment. I
Just
love it.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
So I mentioned learning to walk. You mentioned in our pre-discussion about giving a shout out to somebody.
Yes, I do love a routine. As we now know, running has become a huge part of my routine. But it's also really easy for me to have an unhealthy relationship with running too. I know you can relate to that. You push too
Yep.
hard, you want it too much. My beautiful friend and wonderful author, podcast host, Libby Delana, hosts the This Morning Walk podcast with another brilliant author named Alex L. And they have built walking community all over the world. She really encouraged me to slow things down a little bit, take a walk at the end of every run and observe what's going on around me, pay really close attention to my body, my breath, and my heart rate coming down. That's been really great for me. It's really hard. I'm so impatient. I feel like I'm always running out of time. And I think walking is a good reminder that I do have time. I can
Yeah.
find time to properly cool down from this workout and anything else might need to cool down from in my life. It's been really amazing to have this kind of container for thought at the end of every run. I try to tack on a mile walk at the end of every run. So, Libby, thank you. And y'all should definitely check out that podcast too. It's a really, really good one.
Do you listen to that podcast while you're on the walk?
I have before, but now since I know Livy well, I'm normally just being like, hey, I just saw a nuthatch, or, you know, it's a pileated
Nice.
woodpecker. So,
What has that done for you as far as doing the walk after you run? Have you noticed
mm,
anything?
yes, mentally, I was talking before about how running has become a really safe space for me in my body and sort of a spot where I can really see my own strength. Walking has taught me that I don't need running in that way anymore. I enjoy it in that way, but I don't need it. I can be and am just as strong, just as capable, just as resilient, maybe even more so for going slowly.
Yeah, slow it down.
Mm. I also know a
Yep.
lot more about birds and nature now
Yeah.
because I'm stopping to see it.
Are you using any apps to help identify?
Yes. I have a plant identification one that I'm really into called Picture This. Do you know that one?
No,
Oh,
I haven't
wow.
seen that one. Okay.
It's a slippery slope with that thing, though, because your mile will take you so long. You'll stop and take a picture of everything. I love it. It's made me a little bit of a nature girl, which is nice. Shelby Park has great signage, thankfully. So I've been able to just stop and finally read those park signs that somebody has worked very hard on. And then I'm like, indigo bunting. I know you.
Yeah, being able to slow down, mindfulness,
Hmm.
it's a bit meditative.
Yeah.
One benefit for me is I rush through my run because I've got a call or something that's
Yes.
coming. That's usually where I suffer the most. If I don't have enough time to walk after the run,
Hmm. Hmm.
that's when I don't do well.
Yeah.
So being able to cool down, let everything kind of settle out, walk it off, that's been helpful for me. So let's talk about food.
My favorite subject.
What are your go-to, like, pre-run, post-run, like whatever? What are your favorite meals that you
Okay.
eat?
I don't know that my advice is good advice. It could be that I'm making some terrible choices. Before a really long run, I am a total carb loader. I love a big dark beer. I love Founder's Breakfast Stout. Founders, if you're listening, well done. So I'll have a big dark beer the night before, not the morning of. For, my friends who don't drink, non-alcoholic beer, Guinness does a great non-alcoholic beer that does the same job. I'll do one of those the night before. I love rice. I'll do Indian food, which is like so dangerous. It's so risky, but I love rice and spice. I find spice really energizing. It's very crucial to know where your bathrooms are and make sure they have not moved your porta potty. This is key if you're going to walk that dangerous line like I do. But I love a curry or something like that. Lots and lots of rice. I work really hard now to get protein in, but I'll normally do that after a run. I'll do eggs. I can't run on a particularly full stomach. I know a lot of people who can, but unless I'm going a really long distance morning of, I'm normally coffee, water, go.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. I usually get up most mornings. I'll do coffee, water, maybe some overnight oats,
Mm.
and then let it settle for a minute. Go on my run. Sometimes I'll bring some gummies with me,
Hmm.
some chews. I don't like to eat a lot while I'm running, but sometimes I will. When I'm done, I try to get in some type of smoothie, protein shake,
Hmm.
some
Hmm.
I've been making. So I got a cookbook. It's from the guys who started Scratch Labs.
Okay.
They do like nutrition or athletic stuff. So they focus on portables, which are usually rice based, like rice cakes.
Ooh,
So I made a honey and fig with walnuts rice cake. I'll try to find a link and send it to you. But yeah,
please.
that's those. I can make a bunch of those and then eat them through the week, or share them with um, you know other athletes. I've been enjoying like trying those different recipes out. Pre-race, I did have a tradition with salmon
Mm.
and
It doesn't sound as
mac.
fun as my tradition with dark beer.
Right. Yeah, definitely a big fan of dark beer for sure. Um, Salmon and usually mashed sweet potatoes.
Mm.
Um, most of those, at least in the past, were from the garden. I didn't grow many sweet potatoes this year for consuming, but that was kind of like my pre-race tradition. Salmon and sweet potatoes.
Mm. Have you ever experienced the mid-run bonk where you are out all the
Oh yeah.
way? What does that look like for you?
Just feeling really, really weak.
Yeah.
I suffer with, I won't say suffer, but I am prone to anemia. Some mild anemia. It always shows up in my labs, and vitamin D. So it's very easy for my iron stores to get
Hmm.
to deplete. And then it's probably more about glucose, but yeah, I think the worst that I've actually bonk is at Orange Theory.
Really? I've
Um,
never Orange Theory.
Ironically enough, yeah. So they have a challenge called Mount Everest, and
That's not an
it,
intimidating name.
right, it's like going all the way up on the incline, then you come back down. When I get up to that top, like I'm notorious for bonking there. I don't know why. And it's not even that long of a run, but it gets me every time.
The
So,
intensity sometimes for me is actually much more challenging than, stamina.
and when you bonk, what does that look like for you?
It's like a full on slamming into a wall, kind of
Yeah.
tired. Not even tired, but you're right, like the weakness, depletion. And I'm pretty careful if I'm going a really long distance to bring something and to try to get ahead of it. Um, the Cliff gels are somewhat edible. They're the ones that I'm like, okay, I can have this, or like a macro bar or something. I'll try to have around maybe mile 10 or something like
Okay.
that. But normally, where I'm going to start to feel it is probably mile 16 or 17. Those have always been really challenging miles for me. And if I don't sort of take care of myself there, then it's all over.
It's all over. Yep.
Yeah.
So do you carry those said things with you? Do you stash them somewhere?
I have done both. It is, yeah, I've definitely like hidden things in the forest for myself, which I'm sure is very confusing for people that are sharing that space with me when I like pop out of the woods with like, you know, a peanut butter sandwich and I'm running. I try to keep a little something, whether it's chews or whether it's a gel with me, just in case of emergency.
Okay. Yeah.
In case somebody
Um,
eats my peanut butter sandwich I've left in the woods.
geocaching food.
Yes, exactly. It's like being in a video game, right? I'm going to get my next prize.
What was your longest run that you've gone on?
I think my longest was probably about 28. I definitely didn't get the big bug after doing 26 where I was like, I'm going to run a 50. I was like, I'm going to run 27. And then I was kind of good after that.
Yeah.
There may be some sort of ultra in my future. I think the thing that freaks me out most about it is running at night. I tend to really crash around 3 p.m. I can't imagine being in the woods on a strange trail and still having 22 miles to go. What about you?
Just the marathon, the 26. I'm trying to figure out what's my next move as far as long distance goes.
Mm,
I got to mile 20 and I was just like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? Some people will sign up for the next race immediately, or
hmm
that wasn't me. I was
Yeah.
like, at least right now I'm a one and okay with done kind of person.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm interested in doing an ultra at some point. Mainly attracted to the trails,
Hmm.
off the road, but at least right now is more triathlon based. Just
Really?
now I have a half Ironman in May that I'm starting to train for with a coach. I start next week. Um, I'm swimming, biking, and running, and just mixing it up.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah,
That's really cool. I find that a lot of runners have very interesting relationships with cyclists.
tell me more.
Oh, we're sharing the trail a lot. We are
Yeah,
sharing the trail.
yeah,
I don't always get a lot of on your lefts when I need them.
yeah.
There have been a few really close calls and a few people that are going, and this is just me being hyper vigilant anxious Shannon, where I'm like, you're going faster than the posted speed. And I'm the exact same thing in the car, just a disaster. But yeah, I think I've almost made it into the slight animosity that I need to work through. Maybe I need to do that by getting on a bike. I've thought about the triathlon route, but the thing that really is holding me back is the cycling.
Being being on a bike does help with perspective. Is like as far as there's probably there's a lot of people with animosity like in the car for
Mm,
cyclists. I've been in those situations, but I've also been a cyclist, so
yeah.
it's like that helped my perspective. But I've also found that it sucks to be a cyclist and it sucks to be stuck because of a cyclist at the same
Yeah.
time. So that's been tough to balance. I get it now. One of the recommendations, and you may see this play out, is on the road driving. It's better for the cyclist to not be hugging the
Mm,
side. It's forcing the driver to safely pass
love that.
around them, because too many people have gotten run off the road. Drivers are trying to pass without actually safely passing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see more cyclists kind of out closer to the middle, that's what they should be doing. I know how annoying it is to be stuck behind cyclists, but it's like, we don't go to busy areas on purpose.
Yeah, I don't mind being slow behind a cyclist. The thing that gets me is I feel more awkward for the cyclist, like how it would
Yeah.
feel to know there's like a lady in a minivan behind you, you know?
Barreling
I don't
down.
mind
Yeah.
going slow, but I almost feel like I've sort of invaded the space, like this big sacred journey, and I'm like in the
Yep.
Sienna, listening to Coco Melon with the kids.
Yeah. I get really thirsty when I'm on the bike and out in traffic. I think it's just how nervous I get,
Mm-hmm.
just knowing how much of a risk it is.
Yeah. Have you seen
So,
the Tour de France show on Netflix?
not the show. No.
Oh, it's so good. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It's really, really amazing.
A documentary.
Yeah, it's like a multi-part documentary. Netflix, and I don't know if you're sporty, they make great sports documentary shows. They're all amazing. I don't have any big love in my heart for football, but now I do because of these shows. I care so much about these people and how hard their day is.
Yeah.
Anything that gives me a little look inside, a little empathy is really cool, and they're all great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely interested in that. We covered gear. Anything else on the gear side?
Yes, yes. And this is lady
Oh,
stuff again. A personal alarm. If you're running alone, so important. And honestly, for men too, I think it's a safe thing to have. Mine is called the Birdie, and it just attaches to your keychain. You can press a button, it'll release a really loud siren, and it can let people know where you are. Which is great. And if your iPhone has the Find Me feature, I always turn it on so that the people close to me can find me. And the best accessory of all is a running partner for safety and for company. It's always nice to have someone else around.
yeah. You mentioned you lost your running partner recently.
She just went to Pennsylvania. She's not dead. Just to clarify, Rachel's fine. Further north now.
She's just not local anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So are you running solo now then?
I'm running solo a lot, but I'm also making a lot of friends through running. I've noticed that when I am meeting people, it's a question I'll ask. Even if I'm meeting someone at a bookstore or something like that, it'll be like, "Oh, what are you reading? Are you a runner? Do you want to run?" And it's been a really cool way to get to know people.
So when are you running usually? Do you have a routine or is it kind of random as far as when you can find time?
I like to get out probably 3 to 4 times a week and run, maybe hit the gym a couple times as well. I'm a morning person. Even in this really chilly weather, I like to accomplish it early.
Make to check it off.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I'm sure you can relate to this, but there's a certain clarity after running that I have,
Hmm.
and a certain level of awake that makes me a better worker, better mother, probably a better person to be around. You'll have to ask my husband. But yeah, I like to go in the morning.
Yeah, there's some layer of feeling of superiority when I get up at 4:30 and start running at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
and get, well, at least during training, and get like 18 miles in or 16 miles or something like that. And it's like, okay, I feel like a boss right now.
Yeah.
But
That time of day is really special too. The world is quiet. It's hardly ever quiet these days. Empty streets are a rarity. Sunrises are a rarity.
beautiful.
Yeah, and I think it's a special time of day for sure. I'm curious to know if having your youngest has changed your routine. How do you do parenting and running?
Mm, hmm.
Because that is
It's
hard.
it's tough to balance. My goal is to get up early enough when I'm actually training
Hmm.
to not wake anybody up.
Yeah.
That's always tough. Sound travels a lot in this house. Um, so sometimes it feels like I'm just like barely making a noise downstairs and everyone can hear it. So it's get up early enough so that by the time I get back, they've only been up for a little while.
Hmm.
It's either that or I squeeze in something during the middle of the day
Hmm.
when she's at, the toddler's at daycare. The toddler when Ruby's at daycare. The hardest part has been the sleep
Yeah.
deprivation,
Yes. Yes.
and how important sleep is to recovery.
Mhm.
And not only am I fighting getting older, but I'm not recovering well enough because I'm getting woken up at 1 a.m., 2 a.m.
Mhm.
It's like, I can't believe I tried to train for all this stuff right in the middle of having a toddler or an infant at some points too. Like endurance sports, sleep deprivation from having babies doesn't really mix that well, but at least like
Well, I think having a toddler is an endurance sport, so it's
sure.
got um
How you get to show up, it's balancing your goals versus helping out with taking care of little ones. And
yeah. Yeah.
there's more adulting at the end of the day than uh, I want to have sometimes. How about you?
I think sleep deprivation is huge, and I haven't recovered that way. I've never been a great sleeper, but it's really hard to get up and run on a deficit that way. And as we get older too, our bodies are only requiring more sleep and more recovery. And it's hard when that doesn't happen. And those little, as someone who does love the routine aspect of it, I mean, say goodbye to that. You
Yep.
have a long run planned, and then someone's got, you know, the stomach flu. And then you're going to get the stomach flu because there's no there's no way around that. So I would say the kids have definitely made things more challenging, but have also taught me some really needed flexibility. I am grateful for that most of the time. Trying to get out after school drop off has been good for me. My job's fairly flexible as far as when I begin. So I can get out at like 7:30, and that's doable for me.
Any words of advice to those that are like trying to balance long distance running and parenting and living life?
I think that flexibility is probably the most important thing. Allowing your routine to change when it needs to. And as you grow in age and as your kids grow in age, our bodies are going to need different things and our kids are going to need different things from us. And I think we need to try to be a little more adaptable than we might want to be and be creative in finding ways to get those miles in if we need them. During the ice storm last year, I ran up and down our little road. It's like a tenth of a mile over
How many times?
so many times because it was something I needed that day. I needed to find a way to give that to myself. Listening to those calls that are really strong and honoring them if you can, even if it looks ridiculous, even if you're dragging a tire down the road,
Right.
running in the snow with Ziploc bags on your feet and your shoes, it's worth it.
I've thankfully got a little bit more flexible with what counts.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned that before too. I didn't get to go on a run yesterday. I didn't go to the gym,
Hmm.
but I dragged a tire for a little while.
Yeah, you did.
And I have really enjoyed this
Me
talk.
too. Me
Um,
too.
Thanks for being on the show. Any final thoughts before we go?
Yeah, I would just say to somebody who says that they're not a runner to take a closer look at it. It's definitely not for everyone. I had really labeled myself unfairly, and examining it closer and testing that theory about myself ended up being such a beautiful thing for me. So don't be afraid to try it and ask, am I a runner instead?
I love it. Yeah, like running can look differently to everybody. You don't run to race.
Hmm.
You run for to run,
Hmm.
and I think that's powerful. Do you care about your pace at all? Like when you run?
No, not a lot. I definitely have fallen into keeping pretty close track of it. Not as
No.
much anymore. I was much more attached to distance than pace. I'm still driven a little bit more by miles than pace. But I have noticed that when I'm on my longer runs, I'm not sure whether this is correct or the right move or not, but normally if I get progressively faster, if I'm doing a half and mile 13 is my fastest, I feel really good afterwards. I try to build and build, and I feel like that's a good way to look out for my body and not come out too hot on mile one.
Okay, Shannon, thanks so much for joining. Appreciate the talk.
Thank
And
you. This was fun.
is there any social media or anything that you want to call out?
Yeah, yes. Please come read my writing and be my friend. On Instagram, I'm at Shannon Miller Writes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Shannon.